Thank you guys for braving the great blizzard of 17 to be with us this morning. So I think we got about a quarter inch of water at my house from this snowstorm. So thank you guys for braving that and joining us today. It's had a great service so far. I'm sorry to be the disappointing follow-up to all of what just happened. But I'm going to do my best to kind of keep the energy rolling. I don't expect that many of you are like me in this respect, but I want to ask you guys a question. Has anybody in here ever made a bad decision? I'm going to wave both my hands because I can't get all my feet up in the air too. All right, I'm pretty good at making bad decisions. I do it frequently, and I do it well. It's one of the few things on the planet that I'm really good at, is making poor decisions. For example, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago, around 7:30 at night, I'm at my house, and my 6-year-old and I are wrestling. And it's not wrestling like I'm holding him down and he can't get up and he's squealing. We're WWE, body slamming on the bed, throwing him up against the wall, and things are going crazy, man. He's screaming, I'm screaming. It's like testosterone-fueled bedtime story is what this is, all right? So we're doing this, and I hear a bum, 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 bum. I've been married to my wife for 8 years, and I can tell how mad she is by the sound of her footsteps. She was mad. She was mad enough for me to look at my son and go, hide. So she comes in, and I look at her, and she's looking at me, and she uses both of my names. She says, David Carr. And I'm like, uh-oh, right? She said, the baby's asleep, and Benjamin needs to be getting ready for bed. What are you doing? So the angel on my shoulder said, just say, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. It'll never happen again till tomorrow. The devil on my shoulder said, exert your dominance. And before the angel could interrupt, the devil come out. And I said, hey, I am a grown man. And I live to tell the tale. Now, I'm sure the devil on my shoulder had more to say about that, but the look she gave us shut both of us up. So I'm sitting there looking at my wife. At this point, the devil's done left me. He's like, you're on your own, cowboy. I was just seeing if you'd do it. So I'm standing there and I'm thinking, this is how it ends. This is how I'm going to die. My wife is from Peace Country, so she doesn't get mad often. When she does get mad, it usually starts out as passive-aggressive, and I've got to be really good at picking up clues, which she'll tell you I'm bad about anyway. If you don't catch that, the passive drops off, and she's aggressive, like a bear. And the next thing that woman said to me was, come out from under that bed and fight me like a man. So I didn't. I stayed under the bed. I stayed hidden for like a week. But that was like, as soon as I heard myself say that, I was like, oh, I knew it was a bad decision. But bad decisions are easy to make, aren't they? They're just, there's no worry about them. You don't sit around and contemplate for days. And if you ever ask yourself, like, what is the worst possible decision I could possibly make at this moment? You don't really go through a process, do you? You just kind of jump in and chips fall where they may. If you're like me, I'm at least neck deep in the decision before I realize it's a bad decision. But making good decisions is just a little bit harder, right? You do contemplate these things. You go through a process, if you will. So today, as we close out the series of What's Your Next Move, we're going to be talking a little bit about a process for making good decisions. Now, if you were to go to Google or Books of Million, there are hundreds of millions of books that will tell you how to make good decisions, and I'll just tell you, ignore all of them and listen to me, okay? It's going to be more entertaining anyway. If I convey no information, at least you'll have a good time. But anyway, let's talk about the decision. You guys mind if we spend about 20, 25 minutes learning to make better decisions? And hopefully after that, I can make better decisions with my wife. And life, happy wife, happy life, all that stuff. So let's go into it. So what is the first step in making good decisions? The first step is to evaluate your desires. All right, now I know in church the pendulum on desire swings both directions, okay? And it swings to extremes in both directions. There are people in Christianity that will tell you that all of your desires are evil. You have to suppress them. You've got to overcome them. They are an enemy to be beaten. I don't really agree with that. I think that some of them are. But there's another side that says all of your desires are what God has given you, and it's undeniable evidence of God's leading you, and you should just do whatever you want. And that's not real accurate either. I think there's truth to both of them, and when there's extremes like that, typically you will find the truth somewhere right around the middle. Okay? So can we oversimplify this morning? I'm not a greatly smart fella, so I like overly simplifying stuff. So let's classify all of our desires, shall we? You have two types. You have good desires and bad desires. Simple enough? Let's define them. Bad desires are anything that gets you further away from Christ or further away from being Christ-like. Good desires, on the other hand, would be anything that makes you more Christ-like or deepens your relationship with God. You guys all agree with the definitions? Say aye. Oh, you guys are so quiet. I love it. All right, so any scripture that is contrary, or any scripture that's contrary, any desire that's contrary to Scripture is a bad desire, and that one should be suppressed. Those are the ones that we have to fight to overcome. Our good desires, we need to nurture them and develop them. So let's take a look at Philippians chapter 2. Philippians 2, 12 and 13, Paul is writing to us, and he says, "Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for His good pleasure." I love this verse. Love it. I've abused this verse before. I used to be a punk rocker back in my younger, cooler years. Purple mohawks, pink Liberty spikes, chains, all the cool stuff. I was a stud. But my dad used to say, Dad, if you're listening, I'm sorry that I put you through this. But my dad used to say, you really shouldn't hang around with the guys that are doing, this and that and the other. But I was like, Dad, let me work out my own salvation. Isn't that convenient? That's not what he's talking about here. What Paul is talking about is God is working within you to create certain feelings. He needs you to feel a certain way. So he works within you. Now, the word that we translate as work comes from the Greek word energio. Okay? That's where we get our English word energy. So what he's saying, he states that when God is working inside of you, he's energizing you in the direction that he needs you to go. He's motivating you to get closer to making decisions that are within his will. Another way to say it is he is inspiring you to make good decisions. Now, he creates these feelings inside of you because he needs you to move in the direction that he needs you to go in. Okay? So we don't need to ignore our desires. We need to evaluate our desires to see where God needs us. And I think that I can prove that God needs to, or God uses our desires. So I'm gonna prove it to you. Let's go to Psalm 139. And in verse 13, David writes, "For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb." I love that verse. He tells Jeremiah, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. I knew everything about you, and then I started piecing you together." You guys ever watch the Science Channel? I love the Science Channel. I don't think all of it's science, but it's pretty cool stuff anyway. But the universe is like this horribly violent and beautiful place. And God created all of it. And he looks at all that he's created and he says, that's good. That's good. But it needs one of you in it. So he knew you. And even though he created all this amazing stuff, he knitted you together. Now, if you look at the word knit there, it has several meanings in the Hebrew language. It means to fashion, to make, or to weave, or to knit. Okay? What do you notice about all of those infinitives there. They all insinuate intentionality. You were made on purpose and for a purpose. God did nothing by accident. So my overwhelming desire to be a rock star, that probably wasn't from God. But my overwhelming desire to be with people and build relationships with people, and that's what led me to ministry. In fact, yesterday, me and 3 guys went golfing. And I'm a horrible golfer, right? Thank you. I bought 48 balls hoping that would get me through the game, okay? And I'm in the trees on the right-hand side somewhere. Anyway, we had this really nice reservation at a country club. We show up, I get us thrown out, right? But, yeah, it's a story for another time. The police were involved. No, I'm just playing. But apparently I did not meet their dressing standards. So who wears dress pants to play golf in? I'm in the trees in the mud, Bo. I'm wearing jeans, Carhartts, work boots. Anyway, that's another soapbox. We're not going there. We'll be here all week, man. We'll be here all week. But he gave us those desires to guide us. My desire to be with people and to build relationships with people has led me here, to you, to this family. And I really like most of you. I like all of you. I love Maddie. She's awesome. She's not even looking at me. But your desires are something that you have to take into account when you're trying to figure out what your next move is going to be. You have to look at your desires. The very basic desires to your personality is what God intentionally knitted inside of you because He knew what you were going to be doing. You ever seen anybody knit? Looks complicated. They got these massive needles, all that stuff. Crocheting. I don't know if crocheting and knitting are different. But they make Ava will correct me after service, I promise. Love you, Ava. But anyway, they're not making that knot thinking about that knot. They're putting that knot there on purpose because they're thinking about the whole garment. That knot is there on purpose. So God put desires in you on purpose because He's thinking about what He's got for you. He's thinking about your purpose. So let me put it to you this way. If we don't make a careful assessment of our desires and deciding what God wants us to do, we're being poor stewards of what God has given us. I know it's heavy, but we've got to be good stewards of everything God gives us. Now, I'm not saying that just because I want to drink a fifth of whiskey every night, that's God's leading me to a purpose, right? That's a bad desire. I'm not sure I would live through that, okay? But if I have a desire to build relationship with the people of this church and to just walk and do life together, that's a healthy desire that's led me to here. So let's look at our desires. Let's be good stewards of them. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to evaluate your gifts and abilities. Kind of goes along with Psalm 139:13. God gave them to you on purpose for a purpose, right? One of my gifts is being ridiculously charming and good looking. I'm cultivating that gift. And humbleness. I'm really gifted in humbleness. If you hadn't noticed. I'm playing. Anyway, there's a misconception in the church about gifts and abilities. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, but sometimes people will say, if you just get into the position, God will just give you all the gifts and abilities you need. Well, I'm sure that's happened. But I'm going to say that's probably the exception rather than the rule. Like if you look at the life of the Apostle Paul, he went to basically the Pharisees' seminary at the time. He was very well versed in the Old Testament. He was probably a pretty good orator. He'd been trained in all this stuff. And then Jesus literally knocks him on his hiney on the Damascus Road, and he writes 2/3 of our New Testament. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that God can't do that, but I'm just saying it may not happen that way, okay? So let's give an extreme example. You guys like extreme examples? All right, I've got a bachelor's degree in Bible and pastoral ministries, which qualifies me for absolutely nothing. All right, but I got a really expensive piece of paper in a really nice frame that looks good. So let's say that I send my resume and a copy of that really expensive piece of paper to NASA, and I say, I would like to be considered for your opening in the astrophysicist department. All right? NASA's going to email that around HR. Everybody's going to have a really good laugh, and then they're going to say no. Okay? Because I have no giftings or abilities. I'm not even sure I can spell astrophysicist. Okay? I know that astros like space stuff, and physicist, it's Sheldon Cooper. That's like the extent of my knowledge. Everything I know about physics, I learned from the Big Bang Theory. Right? So that's it. So NASA would call me, and they would try to convince them. Because I could say, yeah, but the thing is that I think God's leading me to this astrophysicist position. So all you've got to do is give me the job, and God will supernaturally give me everything I know you need me to know for this position. Okay, they're going to record that call for training purposes. Right? And there's going to be probably some people to show up at my house with those really nice jackets that fasten in the back. And it's just going to be weird. Right? Now, I'm not saying God couldn't supernaturally endow me with the knowledge of physics to do this stuff. I'm just saying he hasn't done it yet. And I know that that's an extreme example, but really the only way to discover if God wants to gift you in a particular area is to experiment. You got to experiment in different areas. All right, when I was graduating from Bible school, a few months before I graduated, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I wanted to be in ministry. I had absolutely zero ministry opportunities going into those last few months. I sent probably 100 resumes to different churches. One of them called me back to tell me they filled the position. I was like, well, thanks for calling, buddy. You know, why'd you even call? Just let it go. Everybody else did. So I prayed, and I was like, God, I will do anything you want me to do. Just, I don't want to do kids ministry. I don't want to do it. I knew I wanted to be a pastor, so I started talking to my wife, and I was like, maybe we should just plant our own church. So we start taking steps to plant a church. We're doing stuff. We actually met a few times in my living room, and I got in there. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I met with a guy, and he's like, if you want to plant a church, you got to meet Randy Connectal. I was like, sweet, I'll meet anybody that'll help me out. And so he said, just hang out at Vive, and you'll kind of catch the culture. And I was like, this is great. I fell in love with what we're doing here at Vive, and they take me to Chick-fil-A on Two Notch after he introduced me to this really weird guy named Chuck Hill. You get used to him. Love you, Chuck. No, I love him to death. But I'll never forget it. Randy, this is an exact quote, okay? Randy looked at me at Chick-fil-A, and he said, if you want to know how to build a church, you've got to learn how to build a children's ministry. I looked straight up at God, and I was like, really? Come on, man. So I said, all right, yeah, I'll do it. And I was in basic element for a year. I actually really enjoyed it. I had a great time. We have any teachers in the crowd today? I pray for you guys every single day because I used to spend 2 hours once a week with elementary school kids, and I would come out like vibrating. And teachers do it for like 40, 50 hours a week. It's ridiculous. It's like a gifting. I told Miss Shortman, and I said there's not enough Xanax on the planet to make me a teacher. I couldn't do it. But the way that you figure out how, I learned a lot of stuff about myself. And the way that you figure out how God wants to gift you is by serving. You've got to serve in a Christian community. Okay? Now, shameless plug here, Vive, we've got all kinds of ways for you to serve. There's all kinds of serve teams. And when you serve here, it's not about getting stuff done around the church. Okay, that stuff's going to get done anyway. We just ask Jimmy to do it, and he does it. All right, whatever our serve teams don't do, we put it on his little office thing, and it just magically happens. I wish you could come up here sometime during the week. Jimmy tears this whole church apart and puts it back together in 1 week. It's crazy. He's a magic man. Thank you, Jimmy. We call him the magic man. But you got to jump in. You got to just start experimenting. You'll figure out places that you've got natural passions for that you didn't even know about. Like, I didn't even know I liked kids. At that time, I had one child, and I didn't like him most of the time. I love you, Ben. He's sitting over there. Forgot about that. Now, y'all's kids are awesome because I can play with them. I can give them candy, those 6-foot-long pixie sticks, and I'm like, have fun. Your kids are awesome. My kids are with me all the time. I don't remember the last time my 6-year-old was quiet, but I realized that I really like them. I don't want to be around them, but I really like them. But there's all kinds of places for you to serve. Now, when you serve, it doesn't, like I said, it's not about getting stuff done around the church. It's about aligning your heart with the heart of God. Because God is a servant, right? It's about building relationships with those that you get to serve with. You know, we have amazing serve teams here. Sometimes things happen in your life, and the churches that I'm used to, it was like went straight up to like the senior pastor. He was the first one to know about everything. In Vive, it's weird. It's the serve teams that know about it. They take care of it, and the people on staff see it on Facebook a week later. I'm like, I didn't even know that happened. Like, when did that happen? But it's the relationship that you build. Our youth group has a phenomenal phrase that they use here, and we're going to talk about it more in a little bit, but they say, we don't have friends, we have family. Here at Vive, we're a family. So experiment in different areas. That's the only way that you'll be able to discuss or discover those areas that God's given you passions for. Now, we got to change the question we ask, okay? The question is not, what is my gift? Because that's a selfish question. It comes from a me-centered worldview. It's basically saying, what has God given me that I can bless this world with? Right? The question is not, what is my gift? The question is, how may I serve? That's an other-centered worldview question. We don't go into a serve team or to a job or to a classroom or to anywhere and say, how can I bless these people today? We go in and we say, what is God doing here and how can I be a part of it? So how can I serve? The premise of the question is totally different. So if you're feeling led to serve in an area, evaluate the gifts that God's given you. Evaluate the abilities that you already have. And don't look at this evaluation as a lack of faith. Look at this evaluation as merely a part of the process of making a mature, responsible decision. Right? Is there any area in your life that you just kind of just throw yourself into it without kind of checking to see if you can handle it first? And I've seen me do it a couple times. It ends badly. But we evaluate ourselves, don't we? So evaluate your gifts and abilities. Now, the last thing I want you to evaluate in making decisions is evaluate the counsel of others. Don't make every decision by yourself. Other people's opinions should play an important role in every major decision that we make. Now, if you have a spouse, I would go to them first. You know, if your wife finds out you were asking your buddies on the golf course about a major life decision she hasn't heard about yet, she's going to be a little upset. Okay? So go to your spouse first, your husband, your wife. They should be the first person to provide input because it directly impacts their lives too. Okay? If I decide I'm going to go be a missionary in China, I might want to discuss that with Erica before I buy tickets. Okay? Because she ain't going with me. I promise. But turn to your pastors, turn to the members of the church, and let us give opinions on what we think is the best decision and best direction. Now, I'm not saying that the people on your serve teams, the people on staff, are going to have like direct line to God. You know, whatever I say is straight from Jesus, so go do it. That's not how it works. All right, but I want you guys to at least think about what other people have to say about it. Let's look at Galatians chapter 6. All right, Galatians 6:2 says, "Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." That's where the family part comes in. If I see you struggling with something, I want to come up and I want to struggle with you. Life is a team sport. Okay, nobody gets out alive. We got to do this together. No man's an island. So what we do here at Vive and the Vive family is we bear each other's burdens. If you're struggling with a decision, talk openly about it. Discuss it with people that you trust. Develop deep relationships. Now, you see people every Sunday that come to church every week, and they are superficial relationships. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Next Sunday, check the box. Let's go. I want to challenge you to not have superficial relationships in the family. I want you to have deep relationships. Discuss the deep matters of life, okay? Now, I'm not saying that we need to go all philosophical in every conversation, but if you've got something in your heart and your mind that you're struggling with, let us struggle with you. Let's bear each other's burdens. The weight is easier when more people carry it. Many hands make light work. Look at all these hands you've got in here that you can lean on. Now, all of us have at least one. Most of us have two. We can help you carry it, okay? Don't do it by yourself. But when you're faced with a decision, speak openly because it can help you see your decision from multiple angles. I'm really good about grabbing my own opinion and loving it so much that I don't even look at anybody else's. But if you get somebody else's point of view from your problem, it can make your decision easier. Now, there's a trap here where you can only ask people who think like you, okay? If you think like me, I really like what you have to say about my decisions, okay? But find somebody who you think will disagree with you. Listen to what they have to say, and they may drop some kind of truth bomb on you you've never heard about before. You may be able to see the problem in a new light. That'll help you make a better decision. So obtain counsel from various people. Just get a variety of them. God made us as social creatures, and we find identity and purpose only when we have relationships with other people. And we can't expect to understand God's direction for our lives apart from the experience of sharing our lives and decisions with those who bear His image. We are all image bearers. They can help us. People help us. Let us help each other. Now let's talk about some circumstances, because circumstances play a pretty good role in decision making, don't they? Let's talk about two different kinds. You've got constraining circumstances, you've got non-constraining circumstances, okay? Those are those big $75 college words that strictly mean this. Constraining circumstances are, if this building catches on fire, we have one decision: get out. Right? It's every man for himself, too. I'll meet you in the parking lot. I'm going out that door. I'll wave at you so you see it, but I'm not going to be like, over here, okay? Then you have non-constraining circumstances. Those are the ones where you can have several decisions that you can make, right? There's several different options for you. And those are really the only two kind of circumstances that we have. Like if I get a flat tire, I'm forced to stop and fix it, right? There's really no other option besides running my rims and making my wife mad, which I'm good at that. But you ever heard the thing, open and closed doors? Sometimes God will open a door, sometimes God will close a door. And He does guide us that way, okay? But let's be careful. Let's not place too much significance on that because you can get trapped. Just because God closes the door doesn't mean no. It could simply mean not yet. The one thing you'll learn about God, if you haven't already learned it, is that He takes His time. That dude's not in a hurry, right? He takes His time. He grows things. Have you ever put an acorn in the ground and then an hour later walked out and you've got a 60-foot oak tree? That's what we expect with God, isn't it? Look, dude, I gave it to you. Fix it. It's been like 20 minutes. But He grows things. Growing hurts, doesn't it? So just because God closes that door, it doesn't mean no. Maybe He says, I need to change something inside of you before you can make it through that door and be safe. Maybe He guides you in a circumstance that's unfavorable. Maybe He wants you to trust Him. Maybe He leads you in a direction that you would have never, ever considered taking. Like me being on stage in a church. No way. But hello. And I've learned in my life never say never to God because I think He just chuckles and says, yeah, watch this. More than anything, circumstances reveal the need we have to be fully submitted to God and fully in communion in His Word. If we don't know His voice, we don't know who to listen to. We've got to be in prayer. We've got to be in the Word. We've got to know how He thinks because that's how He will guide us. Let your circumstances guide you, but don't let them be the end-all, be-all. Okay? If I let my circumstances be the end-all, be-all, I would not be with you today. Evaluate circumstances in the light of your desires, gifts, and the counsel you've received. So maybe God's moving you in a direction that you never thought of going in before. Maybe you're working in a job that you never thought you would be in before. In whatever circumstance God currently has you in, let your daily life be a sermon. Martin Luther said, everything you do is a daily sermon. People who don't know God are watching you when crisis happens, and they're going to see how you handle it. They're going to watch you when things are good. They're going to see how you handle it. And that is your sermon to the whole world. Your sermons your circumstances can preach the gospel to the most hardened sinner. The last thing you got to do is you actually got to pull the trigger. There's no sense doing all this analysis if you're going to be like, well, that was fun. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. Right? You've got to pull the trigger. You got to make your move. Too often we seek God's will as if it's a destination. But God's will's in the journey. A couple of weeks ago, maybe it was last week, I have no concept of time, Randy said that God's word is not a spotlight to your future, but it's this little bitty lamp for your next step. You're the one that has to move the lamp. You're the one that takes that step to see the next one. It's our responsibility. And every step that you take is a brand new revelation of what God has for you. You will get to know God with every step you take. You'll see a new aspect of His love, a new aspect of His personality, and you'll learn a new way to trust Him. You guys ever been hiking at night? I went hiking at night and my flashlight burned out because I don't prepare well. And I know on this trail that somewhere there's a cliff. So I'm like, you take those tiny little steps. And I have fairly decent night vision. So I could tell every time I took a little bitty step, I could see just the next little bitty part of the trail. And that's what got me out of there without falling and plummeting to my death. Sometimes God can't take you directly where He wants you to go. Like I said, He needs to grow you. And it's really easy to look back at life and say, I really wish you hadn't done that. I really wish you hadn't made me go through that. Let me give you a new aspect on that. Maybe God had to give you some pain so that He could inject some power into your life. Maybe God had to give you that scar because somebody you're going to meet needs to know that God still heals. Our circumstances is our daily sermon. Maybe you refuse to make a decision because you're afraid of failure. Maybe you've jumped out, you've leaped before and you failed, and now you're just licking your wounds. The beautiful thing about following God is even if you jump off the wrong cliff, God's still going to catch you. So if you're licking your wounds, remember this: still water becomes stagnant and is worthless, but moving water breeds life. The life is found in the movement. Jesus said that streams of living water will flow from you. The only cure for the fear of failure is action. Because if it becomes stagnant, you become worthless. So don't let the failures of past experiences keep you from the blessings that God has for your future. If you get vapor lock and you do analysis paralysis and you never move again, you'll never experience anything else besides what you're experiencing right now. You've got to be the one to take that step. So let's boil this down into one really nice point. All right, let's take this home. So this is our bottom line. God's guidance awaits our participation. A few weeks ago, Pastor Chuck stood on this stage and he told us that God can't steer a parked car. Have you guys been parked? Is your faith not growing because of indecision? Maybe your relationships are stalling out because you really can't decide what to do next in them. It's time to take a step. If you can't take a step, take a crawl. But you've got to move because life is found in the movement. If you guys would stand with me. Life is found in the movement. It's time to make a decision. Action is the only cure for the fear of failure. The first step, the first decision that you have to make prior to knowing what God has for you is the step to trust Him. If you have made that step, I'd ask that you just pray silently with me right now, because I'm going to invite those who haven't to do so. This is the single greatest decision that I have ever made in my life. Totally revolutionized who I was as a human being. The first step is deciding to trust Him. After that, hang on, because the ride is fun and the ride is wild. It's not always easy, but it's always exciting to know that the one who created the universe is your safety net. If you've never decided to follow Christ and you would like to get on that journey with us today, I just want you to shoot your hand up in the air real quick. Shoot it up so fast you scare the person next to you. That would be fun. All right, so just hold it up real quick. Thank you. Absolutely. Just give you a few more seconds if you want to join us on this journey. I want you guys to never stay stagnant, never become worthless. Remember that life is found in the moving. So for the benefit of those who raised their hand, I want all of you to repeat this prayer with me, okay? All right, let's say, Father, thank you for pursuing me. I yield my life to you, and from this day forward, I will follow. I love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's worship and celebrate.
All of creation, all of the earth, make straight a highway, a path for the Lord. Jesus is coming soon. Call back the sinner, wake up the saint. Let every nation shout of your faith. Jesus is coming soon. Like a bride waiting for her groom, we'll be a church ready for you. Every heart longing for our King, we sing, even so come, Lord Jesus, come. Even so come, Lord Jesus, come. There will be justice, all will be new. Your name forever, faithful and true. Jesus is coming soon. Oh, like a bride waiting for her groom, we'll be church ready for you. Every heart longing for our King, we sing, even so come, Lord Jesus, come. Even so come, Lord Jesus, come. So we wait for you. Cry out to Him. God, we wait. You're coming soon. So we wait for you. God, we wait. You're coming soon. Like a bride waiting for her groom, we'll be church ready for you. so come, Lord Jesus, come. So we wait. Yes, we wait. 'Cause you're coming. God, we wait for you. Yes, we wait, you're coming soon. God, we wait for you. God, we wait, 'cause you're coming soon. Like a bride waiting for her groom, we'll be church ready for you. Every heart longing for our King, we sing. Like a bride waiting for her groom, we'll be church, we'll be ready for you. Every heart longing for our King, we sing. Even so, come, Lord Jesus, even so, come, Lord Jesus, come. Even so, come, even so, come, Lord Jesus, come. Even so, come, Lord Jesus.